And nobody in my life had ever been able to give me this up until that point.
To Anxious Black Belt, the podcast that focuses on karate, mental health, and everything in between. Today, my guest is Sensei Steve Rowe, or should I say Sifu Steve Rowe?
Whichever. Steve is fine.
Because your history in martial arts is vast and very interesting. You done karate, you done self-defense, teaching police, teaching other services, and now you're teaching Kung Fu, you're teaching Tai Chi, you've got a renowned academy, you built up a huge following online, and you're genuinely posting a lot of interesting and very thought-provoking content. That's a very long intro. How are you today, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. All things considered, obviously I've had a lot of health problems, but at the moment I'm fine.
Could you take us through the your history? How did you end up in the martial arts, and what was driving you into trying those?
I'll try and keep it brief.
That's okay.
My brother originally started training in the 60s, and he trained with Tatsu Suzuki, and he also trained in Tai Chi. I was probably too young to join at the time because they didn't really teach kids. But I guess it was the very early 1970s. I was working in the security trade. I joined the London Fire Brigade in the late 60s. And while I was in the Fire Brigade, I bought a shop. In those days, firemen always had more than one job. And I bought a shop, and the shop was quite successful. I ended up leaving the Fire Brigade. I got ill, couldn't keep going with the shop. So I kind of wandered into the security trade. My father had been in the prison service and was a commando in World War II. And so the security service was kind of quite natural for me. Being in the security service, I was living in South London. I'd had, as a child, didn't really go to school much, didn't like school, didn't like anything actually, didn't like family, didn't like it. I was quite a hateful person at that age, really. And reasonably violent. So the club that I went to was really a kind of street fighting karate club. And the violence was fine for me, particularly because of my character and the kind of work that I did. So I trained there for a reasonable period of time, and my instructor in the end left. He was a long distance lorry driver, and he wanted to drive these trucks right the way across Europe and the world. And I eventually took his clubs over. I started a local children's club at that time on the estate that I lived in. And then the parents wanted to train, and kind of as it went on, I suddenly had all these different clubs that I was teaching. And really, we were just a gang of thugs mainly. I decided that I wanted to learn properly. I wanted to belong, if you like, to a proper association. My original club was a part of the Zazen, you probably don't remember, Zazen Karate Association, which was almost like one of the first karate franchises in the 70s, opened up everywhere under John Alexander. But my instructor broke away from them as well. So we really were a kind of rogue club. Don Kane actually started with Zazen as well, funnily enough, many, many years ago. So I joined what was then Terra, T-E-R-A, Terra Karate, which was the first multi-style association in the country. Because as it was before that, you either joined Wadaroo or Shotokan or whatever. So I joined Terra. I was already a second Dan at that time, but I went to regrade for my second Dan with Toru and failed. And basically went up to Toru and said, what happened? What did I have to do? And because I was in the security trade, I was doing a lot of gym work. I was muscly and strong. He said, you're trying to use the sledgehammer to crush a grape. And I said to him, so what do I have to do? And he said, take private lessons. But I was in Kent and he was in Birmingham. So that started me traveling from Kent to Birmingham every week for a 2-hour private lesson with him. Whilst doing that, I also wrote to Okimitsu Fuji, the Iaido instructor, as I wanted to do Iaido, doing Wadaru. Wadaru's got ties with Iaido. And so I wanted to learn Iaido. Luckily, Fuji was in Dartford, which was very close to me. So I was taking a 2-hour private lesson with him each week and a 2-hour private lesson with Toru. I'd also, prior to that, I'd seen David Carradine in Kung Fu. And in watching the temple scenes, there was something inside of me that I knew that I couldn't carry on the course I was. I was very angry. I was very violent. I knew that I'd either end up dead or in prison or something. So watching this kind of the Buddhist temple scenes triggered something inside of me. And I realized that that's what I needed. You know, my karate was really quite violent. So I went to a guy called Simon Wyatt and I started training in Tai Chi with him. This was in the 70s. I can't remember when, 76, around that period of time. And so I was doing Iaido, I was doing karate, and I was doing Tai Chi. And eventually Toru had a lot of problems. I moved him. That's a long story I don't really want to go into, but I had to help him out. He was in a lot of trouble. I moved him from Birmingham down to Kent. So we sold his house up there and got him a house down here. I opened clubs for him and so on. And I got him to resign from Terra because of all the problems. He was basically being taken advantage of. And we started the Takamizawa Institute of Karate. And the problem was, I'd opened the clubs for him. We'd started the association. I was chairman. I made sure every single penny went through his letterbox, so there was no financial things going on there. But of course, all the people that were still with him hated me for moving him down, taking him out of Terror and moving him down to Chatham. So I had to resign from the association that I started, which was how we formed Shi Kon. So, the progression from there really was while I was teaching in Norway. By this time, I was teaching in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Czech, Portugal, like a lot of us these days. But I was doing it then, traveling around, doing a lot of teaching. I was teaching a lot of police as well in those countries. And we decided that the best way to kind of move on from there really was in training in karate. I was doing all the Pinan Kas, Koshenku, Naifanchi, Seisho, and I had several problems with the karate. One of them was 5-step, 3-step, and 1-step Kumite, which I always felt was a complete and utter waste of time. And I kind of got to the point where instead of doing 1-step, I ended up doing 1/2-step and then just moving forwards into the opponent's attack, which, you know, for me, kind of coming from the street was far more effective. And I loved kata, but the Pinans basically put together went into Koshenku and Shinto. And so I couldn't see the point of doing all the Pinan katas every day, but I had to do them because I was teaching. So I felt that I was wasting a lot of time. By this time, Fuji had gone back to Japan. I was training with Vic Cook. I started doing Jodo. I was doing some judo with Martin Clark, who was an Olympic medalist in judo, and Atemi Jutsu and Jiu-Jitsu. I had some friends in Wing Chun. So there was a lot going on at the time. And the street stuff that I was doing, I was teaching it to so many groups, but it had kind of grown. So when I taught self-defense, I would start off with using close quarter. So to me, you know, you've got all the pre-fight stuff, but a fight starts the moment that you touch. And therefore, I started teaching with elbows and knees and headbutts and locks and throws. I was teaching a lot of women's groups as well. So a lot of it was against, you know, guys who put their arm round and eventually become attackers and rapists and so on, and dealing with cabs and trains and so on. So the reason that I started with elbows and knees is because you had to use your body power. So you can't just go like that with an elbow, it don't work. You've got to, so using the elbows, we learned how to open the body up, how to close the body down, how to twist the body, how to use the footwork, how to step in, how to pivot, how to take angles, and so on. So they kind of got to realize their body power at first. I found that even in karate, we shut the body down, you know, by doing, I mean, as you probably know, originally there was actually kind of no punching or kicking in karate. And you know, we know that that kind of came from Savate, and a lot of the exercises came from the Germans and so on. In karate, it was always using both hands, and it was kind of for self-defense. It was close quarter. So anyway, I would teach using elbows, using knees, using the body, using stepping, and then for the hand strikes, we'd just move it out a little bit. The same moves that we used with the elbow, like up, down, round, back, we then put into open hand strikes and closed fist strikes. So we never did a full extension of like you would do in boxing, but everything was in close, but using the same body power that we developed with the elbows and the knees. And then we would go into choking, strangling, locking, throwing, and so on from there. But anyway, so I kind of developed this system that I was teaching in self-defense. And I kind of started to introduce quite a bit of that into the karate classes. And then one day I decided I've just got to go with this. We joined the BCCMA governing body. That, as you know, the karate governing bodies were all rubbish. I'd been on all the committees.
They still are.
Yeah, I'd been on all the committees. I'd been chairman. The corruption is awful. It's terrible. And it all ended up in my day with, I was chairman of the EKC. I got the EKC and the EKB to kind of get together and form the EKGB. We'd originally got some really good coaching programs, introduced the MVQ, which I thought was a brilliant idea at the time. And so I was sick to death of them. We got to the point where the chairman of the governing body for karate had written to me and said, I see that you know one of your guys is training with somebody outside of the governing body. This is not allowed. So I basically told them to go away, and I left. I joined the British Council for Chinese Martial Arts, that were a much better Sport England registered governing body. So basically, I switched to Kung Fu, and I designed my own Kung Fu around my self-defense. And therefore, the Shi Kon Kung Fu system was then accepted by the BCCMA. So that's how we became Kung Fu rather than karate. And Tai Chi and the Iaido, I got up to about third dan in Iaido, second dan in Jodo. But I'd gone to Uglow to learn Tai Chi because my instructor had faded away years ago. And when I was teaching in Norway, you know, they kept saying to me, have you met Jim Uglow? You know, Jim Uglow does Tai Chi. He's pretty great. So he was in London. So I went to see him and started taking 2-hour private lessons with him every week. And did that for about 10 years. Jim, great Kung Fu man, really is a great Kung Fu man. He's Hungar Kung Fu, Yang style Tai Chi. And he very kindly took me to Hong Kong, which led to a series of visits to see Marley Yang from the Yang family. And so I was able to, so I learned authentic Wadaroo from Toru Takimazawa, authentic Iaido and Jodo from Fuji and from Vic Cook, and authentic Tai Chi from Jim Uglow. and Mary Yang, Marley Yang. So that's kind of my background and how we got to where I am now.
You said that you created your own version of Kung Fu. How was that taken by the, I put in air quotes here for those who just listen, the proper Kung Fu? Because I'm kind of coming from similar background in karate. So my teacher, I think, created his own, but he never took the ownership of what he created, because in Poland it's all about style. You need to have somebody above you,
Sure.
so you're learning. So I think he's afraid to take the ownership of it. But I'm kind of from a makeup. What I made up doing research is he just made it based on what he trained and stuff like that. How was that within the Kung Fu society looked upon you? Did you have the problems with it, or you just like, okay, well, that's okay?
I think I probably get away with a lot because of my background. People never really wanted to argue with me. I've got the authenticity. I've got the street cred. So it's a bit hard to come and pick on me as such. So I can honestly say I've never ever had anyone have a go at me about it at all. And I think it boils down to, as you said, take ownership of it. Don't lie about it. Just say everything as it is. If you're authentic and you say, this is who I am, and I always give credit to where I've learned everything and got everything from and so on. If anybody wanted to argue, they could come and see me. No one ever did. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you've been obviously training with lots of different people, and that organizational kind of storm push you towards Kung Fu. Did you ever thought that you're gonna end up in a Kung Fu before that, or is just like, oh, okay, well, we go where we have to go?
A lot of what we're talking about really is also, and actually comes into the mental health bit that we'll probably get to talk about later. But one of the most important things I think in life is to develop your own internal locus of power. If your locus of power is outside, everybody else is directing you. So if you're afraid of what other people think, if you're listening too much, most people, their input comes from social media, media generally, their family, their friends. They don't even know it's not their views and opinions. They're just repeating what they've kind of been indoctrinated with. I think the journey in martial arts is finding yourself and finding your own internal locus of power. When you set up this kind of internal observer of every thought you have and your behavior and so on, and you also get in touch with your instincts, and you start to react to things instead of reacting to them by what everybody else is saying or input. You start to look at everything, and your instincts are normally pretty good. We always end up saying, my gut told me this, I knew I shouldn't have done it, or I knew I shouldn't have been with that person, or whatever, but our instincts are pretty reliable. So I think my kind of movement in martial arts, I never deliberately did things in the sense of planning a career or something like that. You've probably noticed I'm not a networker. You don't see me at any networking type things or events. You don't see me at any of those sort of do's or shows or awards or anything like that. I don't network with anyone like that. The only people I network with are the people I know I can trust in martial arts. So I go by my instincts, and therefore I tend to move more instinctively. Most people miss all the open doors in life because they don't do that. So they're kind of guided, and all the opportunities that they probably would have had, the doors are shut because they didn't even see them. I think once you develop this internal locus of power, once you open your vision so that you can see everything as such, you don't miss any of those open doors. But instinct tells you which are the right doors to go in and which are not.
I think I'm pretty similar in a way that I always rely on my gut feeling, but that's, and I'm supposed must be similar for you, that you get a lot of criticism. Or why did you not do that? Look, he wants to be with you doing stuff. Yeah, but I don't feel right about this person. I don't really want to go there.
Yeah.
And there's that social pressure going like, oh, why did he do that? It's completely opposite to everybody else. But you just have to follow. I think at least I do that. You follow
Follow your
your
gut.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So you as well been training in Tai Chi, so focusing on the balance of health. How did the martial arts impacted your health and mental health as well?
Yeah. Mental health, most definitely. When I was young, I was a complete idiot. And I think I had a lot of energy. I don't know whether it'd be ADHD or whatever people would say nowadays, but I had an incredible drive. And I didn't like life. I didn't like people, and they didn't like me. So as a youngster, I ended up bunking off school most of the time, running with the street gangs, doing stuff that I didn't even really want to do. There was nothing else to do. But I had a lot of energy and I had to burn it off. Moving into karate was very useful for me in the beginning because, it was very, very hard exercise. It was a very, very hard club that I was in. So burning off energy is okay in some respects, but it's not long term. It doesn't solve the problems. I think someone on one of your podcasts was saying something about, when I get all kind of, I go and hit a bag and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's a little bit like going on holiday. We have a really crap life and everyone's looking forward to the 1 week they go on holiday. Oh, my holly bobs are in a week's time, whatever you stuff. They go away and you'll always see pictures of their legs and drinks and the sand and what fantastic time they're having. But then they come back to the same crap life and they're, if anything, even worse or more depressed as a result of having been away and then come back into normal life. So, we have to solve how we look at life. You can't solve life, can you? Life is the way it is.
Yeah.
So I think, as martial artists, we have to learn to develop ourselves and how we view life and how we look at it. I think that's, that really is the skill that it gives us. So in the beginning, just doing a lot of fighting and bag work and running and so on was, it worked to the excitement and quite probably the bad things in me, not the good things. When I went to Tai Chi, I found it really boring. The idea of moving really slow, you can imagine, for me, young guy in the middle of a bunch of old ladies, trying to move really slow and so on. It was destroying me. I found it really difficult. But luckily, I realized that's what I needed. So instead of then gravitating to what I was good at, I stuck with it. And there is a process. And the thing that is really good with the internal arts, if you learn them properly, is that you start with meditation. You start with mindfulness. We know that deep breathing calms us down. So deep breathing is the result of good posture, so to be able to open your body properly and then to be able to soften it properly. Deep breathing will calm the body first, then it will calm the emotions, and then it will calm the mind. And when you've got a calm mind, you are open to insight, really, from the deeper parts of yourself. And therefore, that's where you start to develop this internal locus of power, being in touch with your instinctive self, knowing what's right and wrong in life, knowing when you're being conned, knowing what's good, knowing what's bad, and being able to judge it for yourself. So I think that getting into the martial arts in the first place was a great thing. But it was really, for me personally, because I was quite active, really active, had so much energy in those days, and didn't know what to do with it. To be able to calm down body, emotions, mind. And nobody in my life had ever been able to give me this up until that point. My family were atheists. I had no religious background. So I had nothing to kind of, I suppose, really to get in the way when I saw the David Carradine stuff and the Shaolin Temple and the wisdom and so on, and I knew that's where I had to go. So I think that if you learn martial arts the right way, my book was Soft Front and Strong Back. So you develop the soft front. So you learn to be patient, kind, tolerant, compassionate, empathic, to have good manners, good etiquette, but it's supported with strength, determination, and power. So that peace is something that's earned in life. So you need just having a soft front, or just being soft is no good, is it? Having the soft front is very, very good. It's a very good interface with life, and it makes you a nice person, and it helps to put everything around you, your environment, family, people, students, and so on, into the right place. But you need that strong back to be able to support it. And you need to switch. You need to be able to go from one to the other like that. So if you can be polite and nice, particularly, this is one of the reasons that I taught so many police and bodyguards and so on, was because that's the skill they need. Mm-hmm. You need manners, you need courtesy, and you need to be able to deal with your emotions. You need emotional intelligence. You need to be able to deal with your fear and so on. But when pushed too far, you should be able to have that power and that venom to be able to stop the other person from being so violent.
Yeah, in Poland we've got a saying that if you got a soft heart, you've got a hard ass, because everybody's kicking you in it.
Same thing, yeah.
You mentioned that the Tai Chi was very frustrating for you, and I'm into meditation now, but like 10 years ago, I couldn't imagine myself doing small movements for the same reason as you. It's just so boring. And as well with the meditation, I still struggle to do a longer period of meditation because I just get frustrated with my inability to do it. Is that making sense? Did you experience the same thing? Because I suppose the meditation is even slower for the body than the Tai Chi.
I think what really helps is to understand, and having a good teacher and a good guide, I think, is really important. Because if you're looking for something from meditation, you're not it, and you're never going to get it. So trying to do something actually makes it worse. So the whole purpose of meditation is not doing things. So basically you sit with good posture and you breathe deep. Don't even try to do anything more than that, because just that process of good posture and deep breathing will eventually calm the body down, and then the emotions, and then the mind, and then you will go into a mindful state. So when it's a little bit like your mind is like one of them heart monitors. It starts off going beep 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 beep, and then it goes beep beep beep, and the longer you can take it, it'll eventually go beep, and that's when you reach the mindful state. When the thinking mind stops, the thinking mind is such a tiny part of us, but it controls so many of us because of the way that we've been indoctrinated by society. So, when people say, this kind of the Kant thing, I think, therefore I am, I would say I am, therefore I think. The thinking mind is it's like the software in a computer, really. It's a tool for us. So the thinking mind allows us to interpret a lot of things around us. So like the software in a computer, it evaluates, but it doesn't store. And our thinking mind does the same job. The hard disk in us stores, but doesn't evaluate. And that's the problem in life. So the way that we've been brought up and the way we've been indoctrinated with our software is really quite corrupt, and it's storing all the wrong stuff on the hard disk, but the hard disk doesn't know it's wrong. So you get people saying, you don't want to cross me. When I get angry, I get blah, 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 and you are your anger. You can't see it. You can't see that you are your anxiety. They actually don't belong to you. They're just body reactions. They come from a survival mechanism that is completely messed up. You know, so if you are your anger, you can't see it. If you are your anxiety and your fear, you can't see it. But the process of meditation slows everything down until it slows the thinking mind down, and the real you, the bigger part of you, can rise and come up. And then once that happens, you've got this observer where you can see when you're getting angry. You know, so if you can catch it early, it's even better, isn't it? You know, why am I feeling angry? No, even better, why is my body feeling angry? Why is my body feeling anxious? You know, why is my body feeling fear? So once you start to observe it, I've done a couple of posts recently. One of them was on the observer effect. I thought you probably couldn't see it, but the observer effect in quantum physics is basically that cells, the observer changes the state of the cells.
Yeah.
And we know that if you put DNA in a Petri dish, it changes, it evolves. You know, so an observer plays a really important role in this life. You know, Alan Watts said, you know, you're an aperture through which the universe experiences itself. Really accurate. You know, so when you realize that, and Buddha, you know, would say there is no self. The self doesn't exist. It's an illusion. You know, so when you can see that you are not angry, your body is angry. You're not scared. Your body is scared. Simply by observing it, and you don't even have to do anything other than watch it, because when you watch it, you see how foolish it all is. So wisdom arises by getting into a mindful state, and you don't have to do anything. It does it for you. And the observer effect means that your anxiety, your fear, your anger, and everything is reduced. And I think the process of martial arts is, you know, the universe exists of yin and yang. Everything is yin and yang. We kind of know that. But you've got order and you've got chaos. And we need both in our life. And we need to be master of both. So we need to be a master of order because we've got to pay our bills, we've got to do our work, we've got to arrange everything around us. So order is important. But most people, they need order for their happiness. And as soon as a curveball comes along, a little bit of chaos, they just go to pieces. What we learn in the martial arts is how to deal with both. We've got order, we've got our training routines, we set everything up, we plan all our training and clubs and everything, but also we work with chaos. We work so that we can respond to chaos in a spontaneous way. You're not a real martial artist until you've internalized your spontaneous response to what an attacker is going to do. So you've got to have the right mindset. You've got to have the right physical skills. One of the reasons I love pushing hands, because you start with the drills in pushing hands, but very quickly it goes into total and complete anarchy and chaos. And if you ever watch me doing a demo with someone, it's never. I always say to someone, do whatever you would do now. You know, because if I can't deal with that, what kind of martial artist am I? You know, so we have to be able to deal with chaos and chaos in our life. And, you know, I've certainly had my fair share of that. So you would go to pieces when chaos comes around. Some people live in chaos, but without order, they don't have a decent life. So we need both the yin and the yang. We need order, we need chaos, we need to be a master of both.
That's very, very well put. I really like that. So you started building Shi Kon. How was the beginnings of, we already had established your reputation through karate and stuff like that, but how did you go about to build such a successful organization as Shi Kon is, providing so many valuable courses and instructorships and bringing really all the, it's not only because most of like a kung fu or karate organizations specializing in that small avenue. What I gather from your work you're working with karate people like Don, you're working with people from kind of kung fu like Matt Hatt, and lots of people comes to you for advice, for the courses, for the stuff. How did you establish yourself, and what was the drive to not go narrowing but going wider and to help other people?
Probably because of my background, because of everything that I've done. I mean, on my coaching program at the moment, my Tai Chi coaching program, which both of those gentlemen have done, but I've currently got 100 people on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that most of them, 90% plus, must be fifth, sixth Dan or above in everything from Wing Chun, Krav Maga, Kung Fu, all types of karate, kickboxing. Uh, you'd be surprised at the list of people that are actually on my coaching programs. It's not something we kind of talk about or brag about that much, but they're all, not all, but a lot of them tend to be very high grade people in a whole wide range of martial arts. But they will say the same thing, you know, what you teach enhances my art.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just the Tai Chi, it enhances everything I do because you've got, you know, like you've got order and chaos, you've got an inside and an outside. And people talk about internal martial arts and external martial arts, which when you think about it, it's pretty crazy, isn't it? We've all got an inside and an outside.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you've got to train both, haven't you? If you don't meditate, if you don't go through the process that we spoke about earlier, you'll never be a good martial artist. And that, I think, is the biggest problem. We're still plagued with narcissists and bullies and so on in the martial arts, and people that are just constantly craving attention all the time. And social
Mm-hmm.
media has probably made it worse. But I think that I think the reason for success, we've got a successful dojo, we've got waiting lists for our classes. I don't teach them, my son-in-law teaches them. I teach the coaching program. But all of our success, I think, we don't use any business gurus of any description. So we don't have like recruiting people or anything like that. But authenticity is the big thing. If you are authentic, if you're genuine, if you are who you are in the dojo and outside of the dojo, and therefore the way that you treat people and talk to people and deal with people, and even to the stuff that you put out on social media, if you are authentic, you're not just trying to recruit people. The last thing we want is a revolving door where you put out standard AI crap to bring people in. And when they come in, it's nothing like you advertised. Then they're going to leave pretty quick. And if you're not a genuine and authentic person yourself, and the teachers are not, then people will leave very quickly. And I'm always surprised, really surprised, that nearly all business gurus in the martial arts deal with recruiting, but they don't deal with retention and they don't deal with continued professional development of the head coach and the other coaches. And there's very little in the ways of routes to be able to progress if you wanted to be a world champion or whatever, or whatever, you know. All of that is really kind of lacking. And I think probably that's the bit that we provide. It's because we're helping the chief instructors to develop themselves. We're helping them to develop their clubs. We're helping them to be authentic, to learn to just be who they are and put themselves across that way. So when people join a club or an association or whatever, they get what they see. And also they know that you're actually interested in them rather than just interested in yourself.
Yeah, this is something which I was struggling with for some time. I think as a younger person going into coaching and stuff, you're trying to find your identity. And I started teaching in UK. Karate is not so popular. I teach only adults. I don't teach kids. So it was like, well, people are not interested in karate. Let's do MMA. But soon we done MMA, started to MMA. Um, People start dropping out, and I'm solely believing because I didn't believe in it 100%.
Yeah.
It was just a karate without the suits, and my heart always was going back to karate. Whatever I do, it always rounds back and goes to karate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I try to stick to it. Well, it's not for everybody. If somebody wants to stay with us, that's fine. I don't try to, portray myself different way than I am, and it's slowly growing. It's not, amazing, but it's slowly growing. Did you had that stage like that you've been kind of going and try experimenting with different stuff, and your mind thinking you that maybe I should do this because it's more popular or not?
Yeah, not because it's more popular, but because it's what I wanted to do. So again, I was always just following my gut. The amount of times that people have said to me, "Don't do this, Steve. You'll lose all your students."
Mhm,
So the amount of times I've said, don't stop doing karate. Karate is the thing that reason that people are training with you. It's the reason that they come to you.
mhm,
If you drop the white suit karate, you lose all your students. If you stop teaching in Japanese, you will lose all your students.
mhm,
It's rubbish. They follow you. And
mhm,
if you're authentic and you're genuine, people stick with you and they stick with you whatever you do. And luckily, every move I made was one for the better anyway.
mhm,
But I can honestly say I didn't really lose anyone through quite major changes. So yes, I evolved, I changed as I went along, but they were following me. It wasn't particularly, necessarily the art or the techniques or something like that. They're following a person. So I think again, it comes back to if you're authentic, if you're genuine, if you are interested in your students, they know it. People pick up on
mhm.
that, don't you? How many instructors do you know that they've got this false face? Even ones, I mean, you teach a lot of seminars. How many people do you see teaching seminars that they're just wearing a mask? That's not who they are. So they're always going to get their little group of followers, but they're never going to be permanent followers. If you want permanent followers, you must be authentic. You must be genuine. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I believe in. This is our direction and the way that we're going. These are the layers that I'm going to teach it to you in, but this is the end result. And this is where we're all moving to. And hopefully I'm an example of it.
Mm, for sure you are. I think that the problem in karate as well, which I kind of trying to preach about to my friends, is that karate wants to be tool for everything. If you look on a
Mm.
karate advertising, we do sports, we do self-defense, we do this, we do that, we do that. No, you don't. You do everything like a scheme level,
Yeah,
not in
yeah,
depth. Focus
yeah.
on what you're good at, and I never put advertising for if I put any advertising at all for self-defense because that's not what I enjoy. That's not what I do. I've worked on health benefits and kind of mental resilience and stuff like that. So that's
Mm,
my key point. And I see now, I went straight into that, and I see the growth of people with disabilities and mental health issues um,
yeah.
coming to the dojo. It's just being attracted because that's as you said, I try to be as authentic as I can.
Yeah, I'm in the end. That's what it boils down to. And even now, I'm 75 years old. I've had 25 surgeries. I've had 3 life-threatening sepsis attacks. Should have died each one of those times. I had my leg amputated as a result of one. I've had prostate cancer. Um, I've got severe arthritis from all the antibiotics, the strong antibiotics I had to have to fight off the sepsis. So I've had health-wise, I've had a real ride. And there are people that say, "Why would you want to train with Steve Rowe? Guys, only got one leg. He's had cancer. He's been really ill. But I've never missed a teaching session ever.
Wow.
And yeah, and my point is that I don't try and be something I'm not. Everybody knows who I am. I
Mhm.
sit up in the corner of the dojo there teaching. I've got assistants that help me. Um, yeah, I am a little old man with one leg, but I've got something to teach and just genuinely teach it. And people don't have a problem with it. People don't have a problem with disability.
Yeah, I think sometimes people don't realize. So we've got a situation in our dojo at the moment. One of my senior students have a leg injury, prolonged leg injury, so cannot do anything. So he sits on he's on every session, which I super admire about people with disabilities. They are most often on the sessions than the people who don't have problems in life.
Mm,
It's just you've got that drive because you have to overcome so many different barriers, and you enjoy something, you're just there. And I think my other students now realize how much value is from the observer, because he can sit on the side and you don't see yourself training, but he says, oh, maybe you should change this a little bit. What do you think about this? Did you do that? And you know, he brings so much value just being in a corner, sitting and doing his stretches and mobility, which actually our good friend Don gave him some exercises to overcome his problems. But you know, it's just the value of the knowledge from the outside and input from the outside, not from the group, if that makes sense.
Yeah, everyone's got something to offer, and your ability to be able to work with people of all different abilities is really important. There's so many things that I would love to do in the martial arts, but I'm too old, I'm too ill, and I don't have time to do it. One of the guys asked me to go to the inclusive thing in Spain in July and teach there, but I can't get on a plane and I can't go anyway. But I look at a lot of people teaching people with disabilities, and what they're trying to do is to make them like able-bodied people. So, for instance, you get somebody in a wheelchair, and if they're doing, I don't know, a kata or something, and they're turning the wheelchair to all the angles that an able-bodied person would do when they do, that's crazy, absolutely crazy. You know, everything can be done facing the front. It's no problem. You learn about body angles and so on. So I still train twice a day. And in the morning, I do my Neigong, my Qigong, my meditation, and the Yang Cheng Fu form, which takes around about 20 minutes to form. So it's about an hour's training in total. And then in the afternoon, I do the warrior side. So I do the double-edged sword, broadsword, spear, and the long boxing, which is the warrior Tai Chi form. So in the morning, you know, I ate too much, I hurt too much, I'm too grumpy, I'm too tired. But so therefore doing the softer stuff is really good for me, and it opens up my body, and it makes me, you know, much less grumpy and more even tempered. And in the afternoon, I can normally muster a little bit of excitement for an hour, and then I have to go and have a nap after that. But yeah, and a lot of my students say, you know, you're a great example. It shows that whatever you've got, whatever problems you've got, whatever disabilities you've got, however you feel, there's always a way of training. So I hate seeing people punish their bodies training. I think, you know, that's a terrible thing.
I think it's a as well the youth problem, because I remember my coach telling me, don't do that, you're gonna suffer. Yeah, okay, what do you know, right? And I'm now telling the younger people, don't do that, you're gonna suffer. Yeah, all right, what do you know? So I think that's the cost that we pay.
Well, I think also when you're young, you need to be pushed. So therefore, yeah, young people need to be pushed way beyond what they think they can do. Otherwise, they would never grow. So there's nothing wrong with pushing them really hard. Up to about, I don't know, 25, 30 maybe, you need to be pushed. And of course, I got my fair share of that in the fire brigade and my family and all the things that we did. I was pushed way beyond what I ever thought I could do. And in my early karate as well. It was negative in many ways, but there was a good side to it. So I take the good from it. I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I will push. If I feel somebody needs to be pushed beyond what they think they can do, I'll do it, but I'll do it safely. I'll do it so that they don't damage themselves. You know, I think that's quite important.
I was referring to that thing because when I was 20, I went to the wrestling gym. I've been training with the wrestlers, and they all been doing backflips. So I said, well, I'm gonna do backflips there. My coach says, don't do it because you're gonna injure yourself. Well, what do you know? I landed on my head, injured myself. So I was referring to unsafe practices. But it's very true that people need to be pushed because we don't realize our potential. Even the simple thing with the push-ups, you know, you think you can do 10 push-ups. If you pushed and you have to do it, you're gonna do 15. It's just the mental break being applied.
That's right. When I had some nose surgery where I couldn't breathe, and when they pulled out all the packing and so on, and the surgeon said to me, "How are you?" I said, "For the first time in so many years, I can actually breathe through my nose properly. It's brilliant." And he said, "I'm so glad." He said, "I was so worried." He said, "Do you realize you've broken your nose 5 times?" And you had 5 breaks through your nose. And in my first 3 years training, You know, apart from I got my teeth knocked out, I had so many broken bones, broken ribs. I was in the hospital so many times. It was crazy. My first black belt grading was locked in a room, a small room with two other black belts who beat the living crap out of me for 3 hours. The grading depended on whether I gave up or not. And, you know, I came out of there very bloodied and broken. But, you know, in some respects, I was glad that I did it because I've never been scared of anybody since. And I'd never give up on anything. But the bad side of it was the toll of injuries was awful. It was so I try and teach and train people intelligently. But the other thing is, you know, like I said, you know, when I was coming away from the karate, every day I was doing the Pinan katas to the left and then to the right and then Koshenku to the left and so on, and doing all the endless katas for hours. And you realize in the end, you think to yourself, why am I wasting so much time? You know, if I look at, if I've got an hour for training, how am I going to spend that hour in the most productive way? I used to do road work because I did kickboxing and box. I used to do road work. So I'd go out and run 5 miles and it would take about an hour, the whole thing, going out and doing the running. And then one day I thought to myself, I'm just running. What about if I spent that hour doing kata? So instead of running for an hour, I did an hour's worth of kata. Guess what? Then when I went out to run, it was easier. I trained my whole body. My skill level had increased exponentially. You know, so I'd wasted an hour every day going out running when actually I could have spent that time more productively. And that's how gradually through my life, I've filtered things down. And when, like now I'm training a couple of hours a day, but those 2 hours are very, very productive and deep, you know, so there is no wasted time. And when I'm teaching, I never teach anything that I can't validate. Not anywhere. So therefore, if somebody says to me, why are we doing this? I'm never going to say something like, well, that's the way I was taught. Or historically, Funakoshi said, blah, blah, blah. You know, put it on the end of your hands. And that's where, you know, validate what you're doing. Put it on the end of your hands and validate it and prove it. And I've done a series of videos that I'm releasing one a day at the moment about my Kung Fu system. And it's somewhere in there, but I've only released the first 2. There's 13 videos. In there, when I'm talking about our training system, I'm saying that in our Kung Fu, you know, with each grade that we have in our Kung Fu has got an idea or a principle behind it. So what we do in the basics, we do in the form. So the form is a reminder of our basics. And each of those techniques has got to be validated with an opponent and against pads and so on. But when it comes to grading, I'm not interested in the basics. I'm not interested in the kata or the form. I'm interested in, can you make this work? And can you make it work against a variety of people? Can you get the necessary amount of power? Yeah, that's fine, that technique, but would it knock the opponent out? Would it knock them down? Or are you just going, yeah, you know, and actually I'd probably just bounce off me, you know? So validation is really important. So all the time that you're training, that's the question you've got to ask yourself. One, why am I doing this? What's the purpose? You're going from there to there. I get people come to me, can you look at my training syllabus, Steve? And I look at the training syllabus and they've got push-ups and running and the basics don't match the kata and the pairs work doesn't match the kata. And I say to them, this is just a mess. And they go, well, that's the way it came from the Japanese. I said, yeah, I know, but it's still a mess. If there's no synergy through your training syllabus, and my question to them is, what do you want your black belt to be able to do? And you know what? Most of them can't answer. They'll go, fight, be fit. And you go, how can you write a training syllabus if you don't have an objective? You know, if you go to university to get your diploma at the end, you've got this is the end result. If you go to learn gymnastics or ballet or even swimming or something like that, if you're going to a coach, you've got a progression to a point. But they start from the end and work backwards, not from the bottom and work upwards. So where you've gone, oh, what do I want my white belts to do? And then what do I want my red belts to do? If you've not got an end product, it's rubbish.
Yeah, we went through our changes in syllabus. I was talking with Ross Smith Sensei as well, who is a Kung Fu practitioner as well and karate practitioner. And we've been talking about our approach to syllabuses. And yeah, I changed mine year and a half ago, and
Mm,
it's a goal driven. So we've got only three basic katas now instead of doing all the pinans and everything. And our goal is to for the black belt, you should be able to handle yourself in a sports setting and maybe have some outcomes in the self-defense. And then after that, you can dive deep into the katas you want. If you're choosing three katas that you play with them, you've got the
mm,
basic concept of analyzing the kata in our way. But all the syllabuses, and I dropped all the Japanese names and stuff like that. We're doing the basic is the 10th, 9th Q, you mastering break falls.
mm.
Basic punches, basic kicks, combinations, groundwork, throws, and so on. So it's built on skill based towards the end goal, like you said. So we've got a
Yeah,
clear
good.
path. What do you
Yeah.
want to be?
I think with a lot of people are scared. You know, they've got
Hmm.
their basic training syllabus from Shotokan or Wado or whatever, and they're scared to move away from it. And as the people were saying to me, you lose all your students. And I was saying, well, if I do, it's the right thing.
Mm,
I believe in myself. I believe in my path, and I believe in what I'm doing. You know, so you either follow me or you don't. But
mm,
this is where I'm going. You know, I know this is the right journey to make. And I think, you know, yeah, that if you don't have, and what qualities do I want a black belt to have? Look around at the black belts around a chief instructor, and that tells you a lot. You know, first of
mm,
all, does the chief instructor actually practice as he preaches? Is he authentic? Is he a good person like that? Then look at all the senior grades that he's taught. How are
mm,
they as people? You know, how are they as characters? How are they as personalities? Irrespective of skill, we all know people who are quite. I was very skillful and very violent when I was young, but I
mm.
wasn't a good person. You know, so I would look around and see how good the senior students are, what kind of people they are, to know what kind of club that is or group that is.
Yeah, exactly. People, I think, not realize that when you're going into the dojo and you see the atmosphere, it all goes from the example of the teacher, how he
Mm,
behaves. That's just kind of trickles down, and everybody behaves in that way. So some clubs
mm,
are coming in, and you've got a groups of people, they never talk to each other.
yeah,
And the other clubs, it's just, everybody's kind of bully everybody else because that's coming from the top, right? Do not talk to me, I'm your senior, and you're gonna be doing what I say, right?
yeah, yeah,
And that's one of the problems in martial arts, that power driven culture, that you were a top dog and then you put everybody down, and that kind of goes
yeah.
in a circle, right? You experience it, you give it to other person, and so on. And I think that's one of the big problems in martial arts.
Trickle down is piss. It's not knowledge.
Mm,
That's a real problem. And any of my guys on my program will tell you the first thing we do is we all sit down and I'd say to them, how's your training been in the last month? What you've been up to?
mm,
How have you found it? What do you feel you need to work on? This is what I've got planned, but you know we can adjust it. And then we do the session, and I sit them down at the end of the session. And can you give me some feedback, some genuine feedback? Not
mm,
all you're great, Steve, but you know I found this difficult, or I couldn't work with this, or the way you presented this maybe could have been better. Whatever, you know. But I improve through them. And a lot of people say, you know, my students improve me, and you look at them and you think, no, they don't. You know, you're just bullying your
mm,
students. You're just pushing them.
mm,
But actually, that two-way interaction, if you're an authentic person, if you're not weak and you're not scared of your students, which I think a lot of instructors are, you know, and they become your friends. It's an equal partnership. I don't lead. I support.
mm.
You know, I'm underneath them and supporting them to get better. I'm not up the top or in front of them and dragging them along behind me.
Mm. From what you just said, I would interpret it that you encourage people to think for themselves. Do you
Exactly.
finding that difficult for people? I finding, what I know a lot of people who teach great karate, and I see a
Mm,
lot of people coming for seminars who say, "Oh, I want to be independent. I want to think for my own. I want to learn this," but they never implement it because
yeah,
thinking is difficult.
yeah. Well, that's it. And I think the biggest problem is in martial arts, it's imposter syndrome. You know,
Mm,
so many people. actually really don't even believe what they are. And I'm talking about a lot of very senior instructors. I look at them and I think, you know, you're scared. You're actually scared. You're scared of yourself and you're scared of your students and you're scared that you're going to be found out. And that's what I mean about authenticity. Genuinely be who you are. People appreciate that. And don't be afraid. You know, I say to them, ask questions, ask genuine questions, challenge every single thing that I teach, because I've validated it and I'm confident with it. But if you show me a better way, or you show me that this doesn't work, you know, then I'm going to start looking at it quite seriously and reviewing it and changing it. And people quite often say, that's not how you taught it 5 years ago. And I go, thank God for that, eh? You know, I'm changing all the time. You've got to keep up with me. You know, I'm changing all the time. I'm developing all the time, and you know, you should be doing the same. And that's how you get people to not be afraid of their students, to not be afraid of what they don't know, or you know, to not be afraid that they're going to be caught out or found out. And that's the impression that I get from a lot of people.
I think as well, in a dojo environment or group environment, a lot of instructors don't allow themselves to show their failures to people. So, for example, I am a very small person, so obviously my technique should work on everybody, and the size doesn't matter. The biggest myth in martial arts. And I've got the students who now are the black belts and stuff like that, and they give me a really hard time during sparrings and beating me up. And you know, I'm posting that online. It's just, you know, giving them not validation, but they deserve respect.
Yeah.
And I have no problem people seeing me being beaten by my biggest student who is, let's say, yellow belt and done something correctly. That's my job, right? And a lot of instructors thinking that their job is to show students only how it works, but doesn't allow themselves to show that we fail, and that's okay.
I'd pick up on the word that you used, myth, in the sense of course, in sport has to be done in weights and size and so on, because of course size matters, of course weight matters, and power matters, and bigger people. But that's sport. But if you're talking self-defense, it's different. In self-defense, the person that's most likely to pick on you is going to be bigger, stronger, or certainly think that they're going to be able to beat you. And that's where the soft front, strong back comes in. You know, so to be able to meet somebody's power with softness takes a reasonable bit of training, but that's where it's not a myth, that actually works. And again, I've proven that on the street with a lot of different people time after time. If you can meet somebody's power, you're either going to wedge through and use their power that way, or you're going to turn their power into a ball where for them it's like hitting a spinning ball, and they lose their structural integrity, lose their root from their feet, their breathing's disrupted, their mind's disrupted, and so on. So you're using their power and their weight against them. That's why, again, I do a lot of pushing hands work, because learning to meet somebody with softness. And you know, in the 1950s, we'd never heard of karate, or we'd never heard of kung fu or anything like that. Only judo. And judo, the idea was the little old man defeats the big strong person, you know. And one of the things I think in those days attracted us to martial arts. And of course, then along comes judo, becomes the sport. You get all the Brian Jacks type people with the muscles and strength and so on. And even judo very much drifted away from that idea of softness. But when you look at, particularly in the grappling arts, softness, and Tai Chi, incidentally, is a stand-up grappling art. So therefore, softness really counts a lot, because you've got to be able to break the other person's structure. You've got to be able to break their balance and so on, and then be able to control them from there. But I would say from a self-defense point of view, of course, it's possible. And your training should reflect that. You know, even when people say, well, I'm a big, strong guy, I go, but the person who's going to pick on you is probably going to still be bigger. Unless you're the biggest and strongest man in the world, you know, the person who picks on you is still liable to certainly think that they're going to be able to beat you. So your ability to be able to deal with them in the right way strategically becomes very important.
Yeah, so what I was referring to as a myth is not that it's not possible, but it's harder.
Yeah,
It can be done, but fighting with a 68 kilos guy and fighting with the 95 kilos guy, it's gonna be a little bit different, and that weight advantage gonna be
sure. Yeah, and that's what I'm
different. Yeah,
saying.
yeah. So I didn't mean that it's not possible in self-defense. Yeah, even in sports, you
Yeah,
can see like Mighty Mo winning with people who are much heavier. It's
yeah.
just you have to put a bit more effort into doing it.
And if you use the word fighting, fighting would intimate two people colliding
Yeah.
with each other. That's the last thing you want. In self-defense, strategy comes first.
Mm.
So your soft skills, everything that happens before you even touch becomes really important. And at the moment you touch, being able to command it at that moment should mean there is no fight. If you don't defeat the other person within the first couple of seconds, then you're in a fight. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like I said, I don't teach self-defense, so my prism is through more sporting and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
hence
yeah.
I'm relating to that one. I don't want to
Sure.
step
Yeah,
into the environment that is not my forte. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's good. Um, on the mental health, I don't know how much time we've got left, but on the mental
however you need.
health, yeah, I've got to take the one later, but other than that, I'm okay. Um, I think that looking at the mental health side of it, one of the things that I would like to talk about a little bit was I started to talk about it earlier. There
Mhm.
is a process. If you are going to do martial arts for mental health, physical exercise, we all know, is good for mental health. That's the first thing. Nothing against that at all. But I think for mental health, developing this internal locus of power is really important, because all the time that the outside world is affecting you to make you anxious and angry and scared and so on, you can't arrange. There's an old story of two monks going down the road, and one of them said, they were barefoot, and one of them says, "I've got a great idea. Let's kill all the cows in those fields and cover the road with our hide, and then our feet won't hurt." And the other monk said, "Oh, we could kill one cow and make a pair of shoes each."
Mhm.
It's kind of making a pair of shoes for your own spirit. I think is really quite important, and there is some very good process of doing that. You don't have to move into religious or spiritual realms to develop your own internal locus of power, but this code of deep breathing really does work like magic. It calms the
Mhm.
body, it calms the emotions, and it calms the mind. And good breathing is dependent on good posture. And as you said, you find it difficult and understandable because you need it. So actually, the more you need it, the more difficult or the more difficult you find it, the more you need it. So, as was the case with me, you can imagine me trying to meditate, a South London street
Mhm.
violent urchin trying to meditate was kind of, it was crazy at first. But all you've got to do is just do it and just wait it out. And don't worry, your thoughts come, emotions come up, but they're not you, they're your body. And therefore, as long as you are just simply observing them, doing nothing else but observing your emotions and your thoughts and so on, there's a saying: "Let them visit, but don't serve them tea." Let them come and let them go. But it's a case of just waiting it out. And the more troublesome you find it, the more good it's going to do you. But you've literally, and there's loads of different ways of meditating. I teach it sitting, standing, laying down, walking, standing postures, doing Tai Chi form. You don't have to be stuck in one particular way of doing it, but without a doubt, seated is above all else. It's extremely good for that.
Okay.
And learning how to take proper deep breaths. I think it's useful to have a coach or to have a guide to teach you how to learn to breathe well and breathe deeply and properly. So you're using your lower body to draw the diaphragm down. You're using your middle body to open the ribs without tipping or tilting, and to open all the cavities in your body, to open the joints, open the tissue, and so on. And that all those cavities will naturally fill with energy. So you'll be energizing your body at the same time. And by attaching your mind and your intention to your breath, you're also attaching it to your energy. And it happens anyway. It's like you don't even have to try, it just happens. It's got its own magic, and it's just sticking it out. And I think that if people learn to calm down, and the best way of learning to calm down is learning to breathe deeply. And learning to breathe deeply requires good posture. I mean, that really is the magic. It's straightforward, it's plain, it's not spiritual, it's not religious or anything like that. But in so doing, you are able to see your anger, you're able to see your fear. Why the hell am I scared of this? You're able to understand, if you like, your place in life and the effect that you have not only on yourself, but with the people around you and your environment and so on. So becoming that observer through meditation for mental health plays a really big role. And I'm sad that most martial arts don't do this. So I get some people go, oh yeah, we meditate at the beginning of each class. And I say, what do you do? And they say, we kneel down and, we get Caesar, Mokoso. And then we wait 5-10 minutes. And I say, and what are you doing in that 5 or 10 minutes? Meditating. Doing what? And they don't know. And we both know. I just train with the Japanese instructors, Karis, Caesar, Mokoso. I'll be sitting there going, what the hell am I supposed to be doing? My legs hurt. I'm in agony, God, I should just say yame, So I learned nothing from that. So it's important to say, when you sit, this is how you breathe. This is how you start breathing. This is how your breath moves, and how in the end you become sensitive to your energy, filling your body, filling everything up. And then you can move the energy around your body. You can use your intention to move it. And just by opening the body and breathing deep, there's a real magic to that. And it doesn't matter what martial art you do, that's something I feel that if it's taught would make a radical difference to everyone.
Amazing. We do meditation, but with kata. So we do a moving meditation. So we try to focus on get the thoughts, allow thoughts coming in, like you said, the guest, but don't pay too much attention to them. They come in, come out, and try to connect movement with the breath. So every movement is the same length as a breath in, breath out, and try to find your happy place. So if it's a forest, be in a forest. If it's a boat, be on a boat. Whatever works for you. It's kind
the
of
problem with that
skimming
is
on
it's like the problem with that is it's like going on holiday. Going to a nice place in your mind. I've been to so many meditation groups in my life, from the spiritual to Wiccan, pagan. I was a Reiki master. Been to so many different meditation groups. And so we do all different kinds of meditations, and you get these guided meditations of, you go into this cave, there's a pool there, and so on. And most of the people that did those meditations, quite often you get somebody sitting there and you think, oh, they're incredible, they're marvelous, till something rocks their life a little bit, and then you see them go to pieces. There's a difference. Developing that internal locus of power, it's not going on a holiday with your mind. It's staying put. It's staying there, and it's watching what's going on and gradually developing yourself through that process. I think that's quite important.
So you would say to get rid of the holiday thing and just be grounded where you are and just relax?
Yeah. Again, there's nothing wrong with guided meditations. It's just being aware of what you're teaching people to do. I can give you a very quick run through of the process. We would start with seated meditation. And the purpose of seated meditation is to sit still. It's learning that stillness, learning how to adopt good posture, learning how to breathe, as I said earlier, learning how to use the lower dantian and then the middle dantian, letting the energy rise up into the upper dantian, and then letting it all calm down. So you're connecting mind, breath, and chi. Then we do standing, because we are going to do yin and yang. So you can feel the difference in that energy. So when you're in yin postures, we focus not thought, but emotion on patience, kindness, tolerance, and compassion. And when we turn over into yang postures, we focus on courage, determination, power, and so on. And you can feel, as you transition from one to the other, everybody feels the change in energy. I've never had someone say that they didn't. So they can feel the difference between yin energy and yang energy, and the difference that the physical postures make to that energy. And then from the standing postures, in our standing postures, we're using the hand shapes that you would use in the form. So when you then start to practice simple techniques and form, you can feel when you're in yin and when you're in yang, or if one side of the body is yang and the other side is yin, and so on. And then we gradually work through. It's learning how to keep a free travel of energy. So energy, particularly, you've got to focus on your joints. So from the feet to the ankles have got to be loose, the knees have got to be loose, the hips have got to be loose, your spine, the back, the shoulders, elbows, wrists, and so on. They're what are transmitting the energy. When you bow them and release, that pumps the energy. When you're in yin, you sit in the bows, you put your body weight into the bows, and that's the yin energy. That's nourishing the body. So you've got the energy that's coming back in to nourish your body, and then you've got the energy that you're discharging or extending out. But that's just the first level. That's the basic process that I always start people there, because they've got to understand their mind, their posture, their breathing, and their energy before they go on to do something else. But it's that stillness and keeping your mind focused. So going somewhere nice is fine, but that's like taking a holiday. You're not going to learn something about yourself by going on holiday in the same way as you wouldn't in life. You learn something about yourself when you can see your fear, when you can see your anger, when you can see your addictions, when you can see your needs, and you can understand, this is my body, it's not who I am.
Awesome. Thank you. Where people can find you for your courses and stuff, is just the shikon.com or?
Everywhere. Just go, if you go on my Facebook page, is a good way to keep in touch. Through Messenger is good. I'm on all the platforms somewhere. And I've got a blog, which is steve-rowe.com. Anything I write that's worthwhile, I'll put on the blog. I've got over 500 articles on it. So there's a lot of reading there. So if you ever think, oh, Steve wrote that, and I wish I could find that again, go on my blog, you find it there. And you can run a search on the blog as well, which is very useful. So my blog's a good place. The Shi Kon International YouTube site is a good one as well. I did a lot of filming years ago with the World of Martial Arts television programs. With Will Henshaw was one of my students as well. So we did a lot of filming for WOMA. We made some DVDs and that, but I put a lot of those up onto the site as well. And if I do a video that I think has got value, I'll put it on the site as well. So you can find a lot of stuff there. The details for my program, to be honest, 2026 program is nearly full. I think I've got about 3 places left now.
Awesome.
And it's full, and that's probably going to be the last one that I run, because I've still got these 100 people from all the other ones I've run, and they come to me every three months, and my calendar is just so full up. Every Sunday of the year, I'm doing a seminar. So I don't think I'll have room in 2027. If I've got room, and I'm healthy enough, I'll run it. But I'm getting old. I'm still a bit, I get fatigued very easily because of all the problems that I've had. So I have to take care. But so the 2026 one, there's only a few places. If anybody wants to get on that, they're going to need to get a move on. But they'll find details definitely around on my Facebook page. On my blog is the page with all the information as well. And if they want to go onto the YouTube site, they'll find a lot. I think the club page is medwaymartialarts.com. The association page is shikon.com.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
your time. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yes. Oh, and the other thing is, don't forget, I've written quite a few books as well. So if they go on Amazon and put in Steve Rowe books, I've done, particularly in the last couple of years, I've done one on Tai Chi, one on karate, one on my life story, one on meditations.
I will put the links in the description down below, so everybody can grab it, sign up, buy the books, support, because it's worth
Excellent. Okay, and hopefully we'll get to meet one day. I don't meet many people these days. You'll probably have to come to me, unless you're going to. The only event I'm going to is the Southwest Martial Arts Show this year. Again, Ollie and Claire are two of my students, so I've got to go and support them.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right then, Liz. But if you ever want to come and visit me, you're welcome.
Thank you.